"Pretend to be my wife," the rich cowboy said coldly. "One condition, never let me taste your cooking." She agreed, not knowing that one single bite would break the rule that protected his heart for 10 years. The wind moved across the plains like a warning, low and restless, carrying dust and the smell of dry earth. Ethan Cole stood at the edge of his land, boots planted firmly in the soil his family had owned for over a century. The Cole ranch stretched farther than most people could imagine. Miles of fences, cattle grazing under an endless sky, barns that had survived storms and generations alike. It was wealth you couldn't count easily, power that didn't need to speak loudly. Ethan didn't feel powerful. He felt tired. At 34, he was one of the richest ranch owners in the state, a man newspapers loved to call the lone cowboy billionaire. They wrote about his business instincts, his refusal to sell land to corporations, his sharp tongue at investor meetings. They never wrote about why he never stayed in one place too long emotionally, or why the big house on the ranch had so many empty rooms. Behind him, the ranch house stood quiet, white paint glowing under the afternoon sun. Inside waited lawyers, advisors, and a problem he could no longer ignore. He mounted his horse and rode toward town. Clara Hayes had learned how to be invisible. She kept her head down as she walked into Miller's general store, the bell above the door chiming softly. Small towns noticed everything: your shoes, your posture, the way you hesitated before speaking. Clara had learned to blend in, to look like she belonged even when she didn't. Her canvas bag held everything she owned: a few clothes, an old notebook, and a photograph folded so many times the edges were soft. She was 26, exhausted and dangerously close to being out of options. She needed work, any kind. The store smelled like coffee and wood polish. A few men leaned near the counter talking about cattle prices. When they looked at her, their curiosity lingered a little too long. "I'm looking for work," Clara said to the store owner, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. "Anything. Cleaning, helping around." The bell chimed again. The room shifted. Ethan Cole walked in, tall and broad-shouldered, dark hat casting a shadow over eyes that missed nothing. Conversation died instantly. He didn't acknowledge anyone as he stepped forward, boots heavy against the floor. His gaze landed on Clara. Not admiring, not curious, assessing. "You," he said. Clara turned instinctively, thinking he meant someone behind her. There was no one. "Me?" she asked. "I need to speak with you." Every instinct screamed at her to leave. But she stayed. People like Ethan Cole didn't ask twice. "I need a wife," he said flatly. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Clara's face flushed. "I'm sorry, what?" "Pretend to be my wife," Ethan clarified, as if discussing weather. 6 months. The store owner's mouth fell open.
One man let out a short, disbelieving laugh.
Clara felt heat crawl up her neck.
"You don't even know my name."
"I know enough," Ethan replied. "You're not from here. You're alone. You're looking for work." She swallowed. "That doesn't mean—" "I'll pay you more than any job in this town," he continued. "You'll live on the ranch, attend events, sign papers, act married, and after 6 months, we part ways." Clara studied him. His voice was calm, controlled, but something tight lived beneath it, like a door bolted shut from the inside. "Why?" she asked quietly. Ethan's jaw clenched. "Because my personal life is becoming a business liability." She didn't like the answer, but she liked the honesty behind it. "There's one condition," he added. She braced herself. "You never cook for me." Clara blinked. "That's it?" "Ever," he said sharply. "Not once. Not accidentally." The request was strange, too specific, but desperation drowned curiosity. "I want everything in writing," she said. "Payment up front, no." "Expectations beyond what you said." Ethan nodded once. "Agreed." The deal was made before Yosno. Clara fully realized she'd agreed to become someone else's wife. The ranch house was larger than anything Clara had ever lived in. The ceilings felt too high, the halls too quiet. A housekeeper showed her to a guest room with white curtains and a bed that looked untouched by time. "This will be yours," the woman said kindly. Clara ran her fingers over the bedspread later, unsure whether to sit or stand. She'd slept in cars, on couches, in places where staying too long meant questions she couldn't answer. This felt unreal. Dinner that evening was silent. Ethan sat at the head of the table, posture rigid, eating food brought in by staff. Clara noticed how he avoided looking at the plates too closely, how his appetite faded after a few bites. "You don't eat much," she said softly. "I eat enough," he replied. They spoke only when necessary. Names, schedules, appearances. He explained the rules like clauses in a contract. "No personal questions," he said. "No touching in private. In public, follow my lead." "And the cooking rule?" she asked. His hand paused midair. "It's not negotiable." Clara nodded. "Understood." But curiosity settled deep in her chest. The next weeks blurred into rehearsed perfection. Clara learned how to walk beside Ethan without lagging, how to smile at investors' wives, how to laugh at jokes she didn't find funny. She learned the ranch rhythms, the unspoken rules, the weight of Ethan's reputation. And slowly she learned him. He rose before dawn. He never drank more than one glass of anything. He avoided the kitchen like it was haunted. And sometimes late at night, she heard him pacing the halls like a man fighting ghosts. One afternoon, rain trapped them indoors. Clara sat at the long dining table, writing in her notebook. "What are you writing?" Ethan asked without looking up from his papers. "Thoughts," she replied. "Helps. Me sleep." He hesitated. "Do you enjoy cooking?" The question surprised her. "Yes," she said carefully. "It's comforting." His expression hardened instantly. "Then don't do it here." She nodded. But something in his voice told her this rule wasn't about control. It was about pain. The accident happened on the 32nd day. A storm knocked out power across the ranch. Staff went home early. Ethan returned late, soaked and exhausted. Clara was in the kitchen, not cooking, just boiling water for tea. The smell of herbs from the kettle filled the room. Ethan froze in the doorway. "What is that smell?" he demanded. "Just tea," she said quickly. "I didn't cook." He took a step forward, eyes dark. "It smells like—" He stopped. His chest rose sharply, breath catching as memories hit him like a wave. Another kitchen. Another woman. Another life he'd buried. Clara watched helplessly as his walls cracked. "I told you never to—" he began, then faltered. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I didn't know." The silence that followed was heavy, fragile. Ethan turned away. "Get some rest." But that night neither of them slept, because for the first time in 10 years the ranch smelled like food. And the rule that had protected Ethan Cole from heartbreak was already beginning to break. The next morning came too quietly. Ethan hadn't slept. The scent from the night before still clung to the walls of the ranch house, faint but undeniable, pulling memories he'd locked away into the light. He stood alone in the kitchen, staring at the stove like it was an enemy. Clara watched him from the doorway. "I didn't mean to cross the line," she said softly. "If you want me gone—" "No," Ethan said immediately, surprising them both. He turned to face her, eyes red but clear. "Stay." For the first time his voice wasn't controlled. It was honest. He sat at the table, elbows heavy on the wood. "My first wife cooked every meal," he said. "It was how she showed love. Until she used it to hide what she was doing, affairs, lies, smiling at me while everything rotted underneath." Clara listened without interrupting. "When she left, I decided food would never fool me again," he continued.